I still remember that afternoon like it was burned into the back of my eyelids. A stretch of cracked highway just outside a sleepy southern town sky, heavy and gray, like it wanted to cry but couldn't. Traffic hissed by, nothing special, until those flashing lights and two cruisers pulled a story out of nowhere. I didn't know the man in the white uniform at first. All I saw was an older black guy being dragged out of his car by a cop with too much swagger and not enough soul. The officer, he called himself Tom Halvers, slammed the butt of his rifle into the man's forehead like he was swatting a fly. Blood splashed across the white coat, and yet the old man, he smirked. "Get down, you old thief," Halvers barked, pressing a pistol into the man's chest. His partner, a younger cop named Mike Brogan, leaned against the hood like he was at a car show, smirking. "Look at him shake. Old man's about to snap like a dry twig." The crowd started gathering people, slowing their cars, phones rising up like little shields, and you could feel that tension, that sick feeling in your stomach when you know something's going to go bad. But the old man didn't fold. His hands scraped the asphalt, his ribs tight, yet his eyes burned with a patience that came from somewhere deeper than pride. He lifted his chin and said, quiet but clear, "You're pointing your gun at the wrong man." The words cut through the traffic like a blade. People whispered, "Who is he?" And when he said his name, Colonel Malcolm Rivers, you could see the color drain from the younger cop's face. Halver snarled and leaned closer, pistol under the colonel's chin. "Out here you bleed the same," he hissed. Malcolm's lips curled just enough to drive him crazy. "Law is more than a badge," he murmured. Phone zoomed in. A veteran in the crowd squinted and whispered, "I know that face. He's a war hero." The chant started soft, "Colonel, Colonel," and then grew louder. You could see it hit Halvers like a gut punch. His private little humiliation had turned into a national stage. Then the metal fell. A silver star clinked against the asphalt, rolling under the strobes. Brogan picked it up, twirling it between two fingers, chuckling. Cheap jewelry. Probably bought it at a pawn shop. That was when the veteran barked out loud enough for the whole highway to hear, "That's real. He saved my unit in Basra." The words cracked the air. The crowd surged closer. Phones went live. Hearts and angry emojis poured in by the thousands. Halvers's jaw flexed. He swung his baton across Malcolm's shoulder, the sound sharp as a gunshot. Blood soaked the white uniform. But Malcolm didn't cry out. He just stared at the ground, breathing through the pain, refusing to give the man the satisfaction of a scream. Someone shouted from the crowd, "Get off him!" Another voice echoed, "He bled for this country." And for a heartbeat, it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Then it came the low rumble under our feet. Not police backup, not another cruiser. This was deeper, heavier. Convoys' engines, the kind you don't mistake once you've heard them. Floodlights snapped on from armored vehicles cresting the rise. Voices boomed through loudspeakers. "Drop your weapons. Hands behind your head." Soldiers poured out like a living wall, rifles leveled with perfect discipline. Halvers panicked. He whipped his pistol toward the crowd, spit flying from his mouth. "He's nothing. He's resisting. Shoot him." Brogan froze Silver Star, trembling in his hand, whispering, "Don't, Tom, don't." But Malcolm moved before the shot. He shoved a teenager out of the line of fire and dropped to his knees as a single bullet cracked against the hood of a car. Major Elena Kane stepped out from the military line that her boots planted, her voice cold as steel. "Neutralize." The burst of gunfire rolled across the highway like thunder. Sparks, muzzle flashes, smoke. Halvers crumpled his weapon, clattering to the asphalt. Brogan dropped the metal, his hands shooting skyward, eyes wide. And just like that, the scene shifted. Soldiers surrounded the cruisers, medics rushed in, and Colonel Malcolm Rivers, bleeding, swaying, was guided to the curb. His white coat was ruined, but his spine stayed straight. You'd think that was the end, but it was just the first breath. News feeds blew up. Vigils sprouted overnight. Kids chalked discipline as justice on sidewalks. Strangers held candles outside courthouses. Federal agents raided the department, yanking file cabinets into the sunlight. Reporters leaked the adjustment lists, cases rewritten, body cam footage erased. And the name Halvers turned from a badge to a curse. I watched Malcolm on TV from his hospital bed, shoulder bandaged, face lined, but unbroken. Riker, now wearing prison orange, walked into a courtroom and said, "I chose fear over conscience." One by one, victims testified their stories weaving together into something bigger than one night on a highway. Mothers, veterans, shop owners. A young officer broke down on the stand confessing to deleting footage under orders. When the jury read guilty on all counts, it wasn't cheers that filled the room, but a sob that rolled through the benches like an earthquake. Weeks later, in front of a crowd so big it swallowed the downtown square, Colonel Malcolm Rivers walked onto a platform, his uniform laundered, but still faintly stained. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He held a small coin a soldier had given him in the hospital and said, "Discipline saves lives. Truth saves cities." Simple, rough, nothing rehearsed, and the crowd erupted. People who'd never met each other shouted together, "Justice is a right." The chant rolled like thunder down the avenues. He lifted the coin. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about every one of you. Don't fear the many, fear the silence. If you must choose, choose to stand, even if you stand alone." And just like that, a man who'd been dragged into the dirt turned a crowd of strangers into something like a family. By the time he finished, you could feel it in your ribs, the shift. Senators started drafting a reform bill called the Rivers Act. Veterans stood beside students, parents beside teenagers. Street vendors handed out water bottles. Nurses showed up after shifts still in scrubs, and the chant echoed off the glass towers downtown. I'm telling you this now because people think these moments are planned, scripted, inevitable. They're not. They're a line drawn by someone who refuses to break. And every one of us decides whether to stand behind that line or look away. So here's my question for you. What would you do if you were standing on that highway? If you saw someone who'd given everything for a country being crushed under a badge and a gun, would you pull out your phone? Would you look away? Or would you stand? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what you've witnessed, what you believe is justice, and whether discipline can really save lives. Because stories like this don't end when the video fades, they end when we decide what kind of people we're going to be. I still remember that afternoon like it was burned into the back of my eyelids. A stretch of cracked highway just outside a sleepy southern town sky, heavy and gray, like it wanted to cry but couldn't. Traffic hissed by, nothing special, until those flashing lights and two cruisers pulled a story out of nowhere. I didn't know the man in the white uniform at first. All I saw was an older black guy being dragged out of his car by a cop with too much swagger and not enough soul. The officer, he called himself Tom Halvers, slammed the butt of his rifle into the man's forehead like he was swatting a fly. Blood splashed across the white coat, and yet the old man, he smirked. "Get down, you old thief," Halvers barked, pressing a pistol into the man's chest. His partner, a younger cop named Mike Brogan, leaned against the hood like he was at a car show, smirking. "Look at him shake. Old man's about to snap like a dry twig." The crowd started gathering people, slowing their cars, phones rising up like little shields, and you could feel that tension,